I'd like to call the October 20th, 2020 Board of Public Works and Safety meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Romine, lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'd just like to remind everybody, out of COVID precaution, we are meeting via Zoom versus in person today. We appreciate the public support and understanding of this, and because of that, we'll continue to monitor public comments via Facebook throughout the meeting and make sure everyone's voice is heard. So do I have and by the way, I'm the only one here in this room, so I will not be masking up. Do I have a motion for approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comment. Any right now, Mr. Otis? Clerk Treasurer Parthun, claims approval. Clerk Treasurer Parthun.
Sorry, technical difficulties. My apologies. First claim we've got is for payroll, October 16th payroll in the amount of $414,795.17.
Move we approve payroll.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, then we've got civil city claims in the amount of $691,041.76. This includes October 2nd and October 16th in-purse contributions, October 2020 health insurance, and October trash. You'll also notice several COVID reimbursable expenses on there. We're still working on, we've done our first 3 reimbursements from our COVID fund. We're still waiting on some invoices for projects that we're working on, such as the drive-through, the drop box, and several other items. So I can get you an update on those on our COVID fund at the next Board of Works meeting. I just wanted to note that. So civil city claims in the amount of $691,041.76.
Do I have a motion?
Move we approve the city claims, civil city claims.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Next claim docket is for the sewage department in the amount of $95,557.36. This also includes October 2nd and October 16th in-purse contributions and October health insurance.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
And then finally, we've got water claims in the amount of $85,431.69, which also includes October 2nd and October 16th in-burst contributions and October health insurance.
I move we approve the water claims.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. We'll move on now to violations appeal. We have Leslie Ferguson that'll be joining us. Leslie, are you there?
Yep, she's right here.
All right. Leslie, if you want to discuss this ticket appeal form.
Yes, I have, today I have the ticket 68155 issued by Officer Clark and Officer Schaefer. The gentleman, Tommy Taylor, is requesting reimbursement for towing expenses. His vehicle was towed. We were able to speak to Officer Fabia via phone this morning, and the car was towed, not supposed to be towed.
So do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to
Reimburse.
reimburse the ticket and towing expense?
I'll make a motion that we reimburse Mr. Taylor for towing and for the ticket.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion, and I heard from Officer Fabia as well. It was just looked like a misunderstanding. It should have been towed. Officer Fabia did say the homeowner had moved the RV appropriate amount, and it was then towed, so it would be reimbursed.
So Mayor, you're saying that because I had a little trouble like differentiating exactly what kind of happened here. You're saying that based upon even the officer reports that the homeowner and camper owner did in fact do what they were asked to do, and then so it should not have. You said it should not have been towed.
Correct.
Okay.
According to Officer Fabia, he approved it, and then another officer came and did have it towed, so it looked to be a misunderstanding, and we'll have to reimburse it. It doesn't mean people are thrilled with that RV sitting out there, but from this perspective, it should not have been towed. Any other discussion?
Is the ticket was the ticket viable or?
Not with the 24 hours.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? So Leslie, we will be reimbursing the ticket and the tow.
Great, thank you.
So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Department reports, and we have a lot on the agenda today, so please be to the point. And we'll start with Bert Cook, Lee, please.
No report this morning, Mayor. Thank you.
Tim Warner, if you didn't speak enough already last night and coming up today, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Just a few things. Since our last board meeting, we have finished our fall flushing with minimal customer complaints. Actually, we only had one. That was nice. The other thing is our two new guys in maintenance are getting settled in. This will be their first full week, and they seem to be good hires. So we're excited about that. That's all I had this morning.
Chief Breton.
Okay, I keep it. We got the 4 swearing in today at the end of the meeting. They're already here, so they're excited. Merit Commission has 2 that they're sending down to the background, not the background, but the psych eval and the physical. That would bring us to full staff when we get those 2 hired. And the online reporting is kicked off, and we are starting to have some of those trickle in. However, one was from Santa Claus, and we rejected that one. That's all I have.
Chief, if you want to mention again, great work to your team for addressing community members in Scott Street area and arresting the juveniles that were damaging Patton Cemetery. And I understand you may have a lead on the individual that was keying the cars as well.
Yes, I believe they talked to one of the parents last night of the suspect. I don't know how that went, but they're taking this serious, and they're out there. And the thing with Patton, if they wouldn't have been out there early at the start of their shift and taking this serious, they wouldn't have seen that.
Great. Mike Fraze, Street Department.
We're taking down some trees this week, and we're going to be starting leaf pickup at the end of the month.
And what is the process for those residents that have questions? How do they make sure, just what's the process?
We start on the east end and go clockwise around the city, and they need to have their leaves out to the curb. Then we'll make our rounds.
And do they know, are there certain days, are they notified, or how do they know when to do that?
I'm probably gonna get with Jessica and see if we can put something online about it.
Okay. Thank you. Beth West, Transport.
Thank you. Good morning. Transport is back up and running normal hours. I want to give a shout out to our staff. They did a wonderful job adjusting to the emergency situation that we had. The employee that did test positive has finally tested negative and is back to work. Other than that, we're just moving along the best that we can.
And again, with COVID numbers running in our community, we're asking the public they have to mask for a ride, correct?
Correct. Yes. And I've talked with Jess Bruder. We're going to put another notice out, hopefully, to let the riders know, let the dispatchers know that when they're calling in for a ride, to remind them that they do need to mask up. And we are still providing masks on the buses.
Right. Andy Snyder, Fire.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have our 4 newest firefighters just completed their EMT training. One of those firefighters had previously completed the fire end of the training, so he is eligible for full duty. The other 3, we are still trying to get those set to get into an academy, hopefully no later than the first of the year. But we're on track to get these guys out on the line as quickly as we can.
Great. Jerry Jackson, Sewer.
Just wanted to report that our treatment plant and sewer crew combined to clean our primary #1 digester. It was a big job. They cleaned the 300,000 gallons of solids out of that and stored that in our lagoon. It's a difficult job and an expensive job if you contract it. South Bend spent about $250,000 a digester to do that for considerably larger digesters, but I think we saved the city a good bit of money doing it in-house. The next phase of that project is replacing some piping involved in the mixing system. That's pipe fitter type work and something to quote out. I'll have quotes for the board at the next meeting.
Jerry, how much did we save by doing it in-house, would you say?
It's a little hard to estimate, but it was a solid week's worth of work, and I'm sure we'd have spent $100,000 on it if we'd have contracted it out.
Great. City Planner Tom Casey.
Sorry about that. No update, Mayor.
Communications, Jess Bruder.
Thank you, Mayor. My only update this morning is that after receiving several questions about how to purchase the new t-shirts, Nick Otis and I have come up with an agreement for reprographic arts. Would you like to discuss that now, or should we wait until we talk about new business?
I think let's do new business and we'll add that there.
Okay.
Mark Schreiber, Park Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to the public, restrooms are now closed for the season. We're winterizing those. We are well into our tree inventory, should have all the data collected by the end of this month and have a report ready by the end of the year. Our Stone Lake Kayak launch, work will start on that on Wednesday, starting with the parking lot and then doing the work on the walkway to the launch. And we expect to see final pavement, final asphalt going down on Lakeshore Drive and the multi-use path along Stone Lake on Wednesday. So that is progressing very well. And the tree inventory, kayak launch, and the Stone Lake improvements are largely paid for by the Healthcare Foundation. So thank you to them.
And thank you to the Healthcare Foundation for sure. That's exciting, the kayak launch.
Yeah, we're very excited to see that. The pier itself will be installed in the spring. Obviously, we wouldn't want to put it out at this time of year, but it's going to be great for those with accessibility issues, but also just a great spot for everybody who loves to kayak to be able to launch off that area of Stone Lake.
Nick Minnick, Engineering.
Continuing our paving, getting very close to the end with that. One item I didn't have on the agenda, we had requested to bid a generator for the police department last year. That was quite a while ago. I did want to make sure that this new Board of Works had the opportunity to. So I would like to request to bid a generator for the police station. Been working with Courtney to make sure that funds would be available for that.
This is important. We'll talk about this if the other members feel comfortable with it, but the generator is extremely important for the police department.
So, Mr. Reed, that would be a backup generator
Right.
for the whole building?
Yes.
Until we build a new police station, when we extend it from the new fire station.
That's the whole building, right? I remember going to a pediatrician in that office back in the 70s.
Dr. Molman.
Yeah, exactly.
Same generator.
Clown pictures. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Great. All right, Jeff Batchelor, Code Enforcement.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor. 2 weeks into the dumpster program, we've had a couple hiccups with on the weekends where they've just overstacked it and that. But I think we're going to solve that. We've got about another week, maybe week and a half at the most with the dumpster program. So hopefully people take advantage of it and at least show respect. And we're right around 3,800 violations so far. That's it.
Jeff, a couple things. Number one, people are kind of taking some shots at the city for having the dumpster out there. But understand, we had people dumping on the side of the dumpster of empty dumpsters. You've unloaded those 70 plus times. We're providing a service in areas that material would be out in the lawns, tree lawns, everywhere else. We're cleaning up the community, and we have people that can't follow the rules and take advantage of something nice. I guess the question is, if we move it to a place possibly across from the water department, we can find the individuals that are dumping product along the dumpsters and not putting it in, correct? If we get their license plate?
Yeah, what we did was we actually moved the one from Pine Lake Avenue to across the street from the water department because they are under surveillance there. They would be able to get license plates number if people just throw stuff on the ground or just try to stack it up where it's just going to cause a mess. And then we can take and do that, yes.
And then number two, I just want to inform board members that 701 Maple, for example, we tried to help by condemning, giving 6 months before we finalize a condemnation so people have an area to get out. Just to tell you, since the day we condemned it till now, we have had over 100 calls for service of our police department. Some violent, many violent situations. So when we're trying to do right for the community, this is the result of that. Over 100 calls for service and putting our police in danger. And I think the sooner we can condemn it, helping people, connect people that do need to get out of there that are good people, but starting to move the bad individuals that don't want to participate in our community. That's the result of what we get. So,
Mayor, is there a mechanism? So let's say in a situation where either some of the folks in the building are currently looking to move, or should it be condemned to where they have to move? Is there some mechanism to facilitate helping them find somewhere to live? That's, I'm sure one of the advantages of that location is probably low cost, right? So is there some way we can help those people find a decent place to live?
Jeff has been doing that, as well as individually condemning people for the new ordinance that we passed, that if you have 5 or more in 6 months calls for service to one specific apartment, he's condemned 2 of them already in the past couple weeks. But as well, we need those individuals that are looking. We can help them, but they need to do it themselves as well.
And just to follow up to that, Mayor, when it first went down, we did meet with Lisa from Center Township trustee, and they were all given her information to contact her so that they have an opportunity to go look for stuff too.
But that's, when people get concerned that we're throwing people out, this is a perfect example of what happens and puts our police department. They've had a couple of altercations where we're putting them at risk. So with that, thank you. If you do not have anything on the agenda for today, department heads, we wish you well and have a great day. So let's move to new business. We'll start with Nick Otis, his favorite item of the year, the turkey trot. Go ahead, Nick.
Yep, asking for approval to host the turkey trot on Michigan Avenue on Thanksgiving Day. The race starts at 8 o'clock. It's usually pretty much wrapped up by 9:30. We're asking for permission to host this, basically from 7 a.m. until 10 a.m. on that day. We're obviously, with COVID, we're going to create some kind of new, we're going to limit the number of participants to 450. The last few years, we've been just north of 500. We're going to do staggered start times to spread out the participants, obviously asking all participants to wear masks until the race starts. And we do have insurance. The Education Foundation is insured through the school corporation. Really, the only thing that we shut down is effectively for about an hour is right in front of City Hall and right in front of the YMCA. Other than that, we don't shut down Michigan Avenue. We do have Chief Breton, or the police department, has been very good about having an officer just kind of monitor, and then we have volunteers monitor at South Avenue and Kingsbury Avenue as well.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Discussion.
Nick, who does this benefit? Where do the proceeds go to?
Yep, the Laporte Educational Development Foundation. So it's all volunteers. I think last year raised about, after expenses, about $8,000. So I think it's the biggest 5K race now in Laporte County. We started it because we got started here. We started this in 2013 because so many residents were going to Valpo to do theirs, and we thought we could have a good race. And so we have people from all over the country come and do it because they're usually coming back. Our first participant that signed up is a Chicago resident who didn't do any races this year because Illinois is pretty much shut down. So, this could change if our numbers keep going up. I'm going to obviously stay in contact with the mayor and the health department if something drastically changes. But we think based off of the current guidelines from the governor that we can do it at this number.
Nick, does the mayor finish that race every year?
Wow.
I've heard that him and the first lady may have quit halfway through one year.
Funny. Well, actually, we were driving and we ran out of gas.
I knew that was coming.
Courtney Park,
Darn it, I thought I'd get you back.
We had to push her across the finish line. She ran out of gas like this past week. But great. We do have a motion and a second. I guess no more discussion. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 3-0, and I will tell Jackie Zoom is watching her if she ducks out off of Michigan Avenue.
Mayor, why you want to do the licensing agreement right now?
Well, before we do that, as we talk about community support and individuals making a difference in the community, and Nick has been a part of this that's made a difference, I thought this would be a perfect moment for a moment of silence for Amanda Sword, who was one of, obviously, our clerk treasurer's close friends, but also a close friend of the community and making a difference, doing so many different things. Courtney, is there anything you'd like to say on her behalf? And then we take a moment of silence.
Our Parks Department put a beautiful, tribute to Amanda out on their Facebook page. So I invite everyone to go take a look at kind of the impact that Amanda made on our community. And I can't say anything else. So thank you for that.
All right, let's have a moment of silence for a young lady that set a great standard for our community in giving back and making life better for everybody else, for Amanda Sword. Thank you. So, members, and I apologize not getting this to you sooner, but sometimes things happen where we get it at the last minute. If you do not feel comfortable with this, we can make sure we hold it till the next meeting. But this is something pretty standard. A retail product license agreement that if I could have Mr. Otis or Jess Bruder speak to, and please take as much time as you need to ask any questions, or if you'd rather hold.
I'll touch on the legal side of it first, and then if Jess wants to add anything on the marketing side. So the new logo that Jess and the mayor have worked on, Tom Casey, it has been revealed to the public. A lot of interest from it. The city's already given shirts out to employees, and just as a result of that just the interest has significantly increased. The city has trademarked that logo, and this agreement is the first licensing agreement that the city is going, if the works approves, will enter into with Repro Graphic Arts. This is a non-exclusive licensing agreement, meaning that the city can license with other entities. In fact, we've already been in discussions with a few. I know Cableins has expressed interest in putting the logo on Yetis and other items as well. So probably this will be the first of hopefully quite a few licensing agreements. We went back and forth with whether to do a royalty agreement, meaning taking a percentage of each sale, or just a flat fee amount. Just the amount of money we're talking about here, a royalty fee, to keep track of that would be rather difficult, both for the company licensing and then for us to keep track of. So I think the agreement, or the understanding from our perspective, is the city's not trying to get wealthy off this, but we need to protect our trademarks. So we agreed to an annual flat fee of $350 that work both for Repro Graphic and for us. The back of that agreement, that's Jess is doing kind of the really specifics of the logo, and I'll let Jess kind of take over from here if she wants to go ahead and explain.
Jess Bruder.
Yeah, so in the back of the agreement, there is a list of parameters that any retailer, if we do enter into another agreement, would have to follow. But for Repro Graphic Arts, it basically just outlines the way the logo can be used. It outlines acceptable apparel and colors of apparel, as well as just general use of the logo and resources available to the print shop. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions about that.
Members, if you don't feel comfortable, we could hold this, but it just came up and I at least wanted to broach the topic with you.
Ms. Bruder, is it, so you had mentioned there that the colors of apparel, so does that mean, and I didn't really see this in the info, or maybe I missed it, that pretty obvious, like the different colors that can be used for the logo and how they can be used. But is it also, so there's a limitation on the color of apparel or hats or whatever that it can be put on?
That's correct. Yeah, we have different color variations of the logo itself. So we're open to doing some different things, but basically everything has to come through the communications office to be approved before it is added to the site, so that we can make sure it meets our standards for the new brand.
I think it looks great. I went to the website and they only have a few items for sale, but I think it's a great idea. I look forward to seeing even more products out there.
I will add that we will create a shop on the Live in the Lake Life website, and that's how everything will be promoted. So as maybe other retailers are interested, we can just add them all to one page and share it off of our visitors web page. So
I love the idea, but I love the logo, and it's very cool. I've heard a lot. The shirt that I've worn, I've had a lot of great feedback about it. So I really love the idea of let's get it up there, and I'd love to buy some coffee mugs or whatever. But kind of even more importantly, I think that having this licensing agreement, and Mr. Otis, definitely want to just confirm with you that this would be the case. That having this licensing agreement really kind of puts the parameters around someone's ability to use the logo, and that it can't be used in such ways that would then make it look like we may be supporting or behind some, whether it's an event or some action. I mean, I've seen this done with some other logos where it's not actually the organization supporting that event or that activity, but they're using the logo. So my concern is that just want to make sure that this agreement does protect that. So if someone, whatever, a company wanted to take the logo and put it on something that, kind of goes against our philosophy or values, whatever, that we can then take action on that. Is that the case with this, Mr. Rhodes?
Yes, it specifically outlines the items that it can be placed on. I mean, generally right now, the reprographics agreement is just clothing. You make a very good point. I think we absolutely have the right. It's tough to come up with you're giving some examples, but some really specific things that we maybe disagree with. If they're attaching the logo to certain political ads, either party, pick it out. I agree with you. I don't think that's what we're intending to do. And right now it's just with Reprographic Arts, but we anticipate hopefully having agreements with other local businesses to market this. And it's just 1 year at this point, so we haven't extended it beyond that.
Further questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Sorry.
Motion passes 3-0. Tom Casey, updates to City Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to just present the latest bid from Larson Danielson on COVID improvements, COVID-related upgrades to the City Hall building. Those include all, basically we want to make everything touchless. So touchless toilets, touchless flush valves on the toilets, touchless faucets, touchless soap dispensers. So that's a majority of this bid you see here. We've also got included in this is the replacement of the front door, which would be a telescoping door, which would allow for no touching, both leaving and entering the building. If you'll notice, there is an alternate to install a ion generation system in the ductwork. We're not going to include that. We're not asking for approval on that at this point, basically just the door system and the related plumbing items. There is an alternate number 2, which is for a brand new door. There is a door in stock that the vendor has that this proposal is based on. We'd like the option to be able to look into this alternate of determining whether or not we want to wait a couple weeks in order to get a brand new door that's warranted. The door that's in stock is warranted, but we want to be able to look at both. And I do need to explain that this all happened very quickly, and this work has to be done by the end of December. So the bid had to be obtained quickly, so we didn't have a lot of time to consider alternates. So on the ion generation system, there are different ways that you can treat allergens in the air and any viruses or bacteria. One is through what's proposed on this sheet, but also an ultraviolet system is one that we can look at, which would be about half the cost. So I just need time to look at that. So we're going to pull that out and present that separately when we get the right information.
So what would the motion be for then?
The motion would be for an amount not to exceed $60,510, which would include all of the plumbing improvements listed, the front door replacement, and alternate 2, which would allow us to look at options on the front door replacement.
So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion, and I think it'd be a perfect time to talk. We have approximately $701,000 for COVID-related dollars. Clerk Treasurer Parthun has kept good accuracy on this. Basically, with the current purchases of the drive-through and what we're discussing here, we'd have approximately $550,000 to spend. We've been holding that, like many communities, because this is a ever-moving target, depending what happens at Congress, what happens at the state level. And so we're trying to see if there are anything else that might come through. We now have been released to spend on police and fire reimbursement for payroll. We just want to see what else can be used. So we're kind of holding tight. We have that to fall back on if we need, but we're also looking at other options. But again, things continue to change, and with a potential agreement on COVID dollars coming from the federal level potentially before November 3rd or November 2nd, we don't know what else could be there. But I would support and think it's important to have the touchless system in City Hall.
So is this, so a couple questions. So basically the option here on the front door is what you're gonna be looking at, Mr. Casey, right? And then also, so is the air like cleaning system that you talked about, will that option be in there and under the 60,000?
We were gonna, Mark, we were gonna take that completely out and deal with that separately and come to the Board of Works at probably the next meeting with some alternates, because we felt that these bids were obtained fairly quickly. We didn't have time to actually look at the system and say, okay, there's 4 different manufacturers of this type of equipment that treats the air. And there are actually 2 different ways to do it. So we want to look at both of those. This is just one of those. So what I'm proposing today is to pull that from the bid and then deal directly with the HVAC contractor, the mechanical contractor, on different applications that we can use, so we can come to you with the proper information and thoroughly.
That amount was in addition to the base amount at the end of the proposal. So that that alternate one had to be added to the end amount anyway. So the base amount that you would be accurate.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at, is like, well, then do we need to drop that 60,000 because of the pulling that out? So it was in addition to that. Okay.
Correct.
It was. I apologize. I didn't explain that. I was kind of going through it quickly, but
that's all right. No problem. And then so we've got 550 left. First off, is there a deadline to spend those COVID related funds?
That's the end of the year. But again, there's also been discussion of extending that as well. But I think right now we're based on end of year.
All right, and those out of.
Sorry, it has to be installed and paid for by December 15th.
Ooh, okay. Do you feel confident that even with the, looking at the options for the door as well as the air filtration or cleaning system, that can all be done by then?
I believe that it can. The door is in stock, so this is a very not a big lead time. If we decide to go with a new option, that lead time goes to 8 weeks, but we'd still make the date. We'd just be replacing a door in the middle of the coldest time of the year. So again, the bids were obtained fairly quickly. I'd like to at least have that option and be able to update you as we go forward with the project every meeting where we're at.
And then Mayor, so out of that same basket of funds, we would, as you mentioned, we'd be able to help cover police or fire salaries. So potentially then with that amount, we'd have the flexibility to then kind of basically take a little bit of lessen the budget hit overall of these. I shouldn't say budget hit because it's something we'd be spending anyway, but we could lighten the load on the city budget then with those salaries, correct?
Correct, or put in, and I know we have this discussion with the clerk treasurer, or putting those dollars into our rainy day fund and starting to build that up, which we need to build.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine probably, obviously it's something we talk about, but probably, doing a little bit of each of these things, to be smart for the future. So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Jerry Jackson, Industrial Pretreatment Wastewater Discharge Permit Renewal.
I've got a permit renewal for Monosol in front of the board today. Monosol is one of our very largest customers. They make film that is water soluble. You've probably used their product when you throw the pot of detergent in your washing machine. or in your dishwasher. They make that film. They are very, as I said, they're a very large customer. Last month, they discharged 4.3 million gallons of wastewater to us. They've been a conscientious customer. They pay attention. They do a good job. Their constituents are mainly organic constituents like BOD and suspended solids, a little bit of oil and grease. They've been consistently in compliance. I would recommend that you approve the wastewater discharge permit for Monroe.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. I apologize, we do have some construction going on here, so we may
That's
get
the drive-through progress.
the drive. Mary Ann Richards.
Good morning. I've got 2 items. The first one is a change order for demolition of Tidma Bakery. It's an increase in the contract of $2,702. There's $1,102 for the removal of 2 car lifts that were located beneath a concrete slab. Why, I don't know. And then $1,600 for asbestos pipe removal. The original contract was $96,000. This would bring the contract to $98,702. This would be paid out of CDBG funds, and the funds are available.
Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. I'd just like to say, if you haven't been over there, it looks amazing and is ready for residential development and a positive use in our community. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Mary Ann, approval of estimate of asbestos.
Okay, the other item I have before you, and again, this involves CDBG funds being used for demolition. This would be for 203 Pulaski Street. There's a vacant building that's basically been abandoned. Actually in January, I believe, the city got an order of demolition for this building. And there is asbestos siding. We already had the asbestos inspection done, and it determined that there was asbestos siding throughout the exterior of the building and then some pipe wrap downstairs in the basement. In order to comply with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management rules and regulations, asbestos materials need to be removed prior to demolition of a structure. This estimate of $14,985 would comply with the item regulations and remove all the asbestos siding as well as the pipe wrap and then proper disposal. The company Clean Air is certified by the state and is a licensed asbestos contractor, and they used certified workers. They're the only company within the area of Laporte County, near Laporte County, that are available to do this. So I would recommend entering into an agreement with Clean Air to do the asbestos remediation.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mary Ann, the city owns this property? That's why we're
No,
doing.
the city does not own this property. I would put a lien, I would record a lien on the property. It would go behind probably 7 other liens on this property. There's overdue property taxes, there's a mortgage, there's federal tax liens on this property. I don't know why the mortgage company hasn't foreclosed on it, to my knowledge. In checking with the county, and it's not up for a tax sale yet. And I'm not sure why, but we do not own it. We would just be tearing it down. But we have to comply with state and federal rules, laws, regulations in order to demo the building.
So we're gonna spend $15,000 to remove the asbestos safely, and then another 10, 15 to demolish it.
I would say probably closer to 25 to 30,000 to demolish it. It's a large multi-unit building. There's 4 rental units in there, plus a garage.
And this is the one that we're doing in conjunction or for Nate Laux.
I have no relationship or information regarding that. That would be, the property is adjacent to the Brighton Street Community Gardens.
Yes.
If Nate wanted, I mean, it would be up to State Street Community Church to decide legally and financially what they would do in order to purchase the property. But there's probably $150,000 worth of liens on the property right now.
But this was one that they were asking to have demolition. We had people walking in there, going in that building consistently, and it is bad news.
Yes. Yeah, there were squatters in there.
This is an important one to get down as a part of our list.
Yes.
So all the costs to do this for the demolition will come out of CDBG funds?
Yes.
Okay.
And it sounds like with all of those liens that I'm guessing it would be relatively unlikely to recoup any of that. Because we were behind all of those other lien holders.
Correct.
Is all of this going to happen this year, Marianne? The demolition?
I'm planning on it. Depends on how quickly, if you approve the estimate, accept the estimate for the remediation work, it depends on how quickly they can get that done. And then while they're doing that, I can put out to quote for demolition. And hopefully.
How many dollars do we have left in our demo fund after this, would you say roughly?
I'm going to say 100,000.
Because we've got some more targets.
We've got, after this, we've got a couple more houses. I just solicited quotes yesterday. I emailed to 6 companies, demolition companies, for demolition at 104 Grove Street, which is on the corner of Tipton and Grove. That building is clean. We had an asbestos assessment done on that, and that came out clean. So we can go ahead and tear that down. The building next to it at 603 Tipton, all of the plaster in the walls throughout this entire building is positive for asbestos. So I went ahead and we can do a more detailed testing to see at what point or how detailed the asbestos is in the plaster, and that will determine what we do from there, whether or not we can go ahead and demolish the building without a more intensive remediation, or if we're going to have to do the intensive remediation, which means removing all the plaster inside that house. And it's a good size structure. It's a multi-unit brick house that's been chopped up into 4 or 5 units.
You know, I'd also to mention, Tom Casey's been working very closely on the Lady Rose and the building next to it. We had an original agreement that this board approved, and I've not been pleased how we've been chasing around a little bit. We have an individual that has ownership of this now, and Tom has been strong in saying, hey, we want these buildings demoed by the end of the month, October. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but we're doing everything in our legal power to make sure that it does. Tom,
Wasn't that in the contract?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't that in the contract that they had to have it done within a certain time frame?
Correct. Tom, if you want to add to this.
Sure, it was in the original contract when the property was sold to Colleen Hudson. When the transfer was made to the new owner for both properties, Lady Rose and then the gray building next door to it, that did not include the assignment. We were working with our attorneys to get that assignment executed, and we submitted an assignment, but both buyer and seller basically blew it off, moved forward with the sale of the property. And now we are, while we do have some
legal standing
and things we can do to enforce that breach, we're the best option right now is to try to work with that new owner and get it down as quickly as possible. So I'm in touch with him on a weekly basis. We are pushing as much as we can to get it down by October 31st. Transportation has been an issue. Trucking has been an issue in order to get this done. So we're just pushing as best we can. But the fact that the assignment was not executed is not a good one.
Are they being cooperative, the owners, the new owners?
Yeah, been very cooperative, texting me updates, letting me know where he's at on it. So I think that that's probably the best news out of the whole thing, that we do have a cooperative owner now, and his goal is to get it down as quickly as possible also.
Oh, good, great. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion, Mr. Post?
On those types of issues like the Lady Rose, I'm just wondering if, now obviously in the situation on the Pulaski Street, even putting a lane is not likely to do much. But in the situation where, like Lady Rose, where then we enter into a contract with an individual organization and then they sell it after that contract, I wonder if we could, in initiating that contract with an owner next time, if we could put a lien as a part of the agreement, put a lien against the property, which would prevent them from selling it to someone else and thereby undermining the contract that we enter into for a demolition. Is that something that we could do in the future?
Yeah, I think, Mark, I think in the future we'll probably do that a little differently, or put, there's a variety of things we could do. We could just put a demolition order date, demo by date, and if it's not done, we do it, put a lien on the property. Yeah, I think we do that differently. This was a little unique because Miss Hudson got the Lady Rose, and part of the reason she got Lady Rose was she agreed to demo a building that we had no control over. It was a building she had always owned, so it was a little weird and in how it kind of came together. But we're working with Kent Johnson. He's a guy that's been here for a long time in the community, trying to help him get these two buildings down. So.
Any other questions?
Well, just so back to the Pulaski Street. I mean, it certainly is concerning that we're sort of, even though it's out of CDBG funds, but those are funds that we could potentially use elsewhere, right? It is concerning that we're paying for this. Of course, it sounds like it's been a disaster for lots of folks who have all these liens against this property. I don't know that there's much more we can do it. I mean, it sounds like it is a really, I can picture the building. It sounds like it is a big problem and would likely continue to be a problem. So I really feel like dragging my feet on this because I don't like this idea of putting this amount of money into a building that will probably never recoup, and we have to sort of keep our fingers crossed that something positive is going to happen down the road. But given the situation with not only the asbestos that's there, but when you talk about squatters and again, just being a black mark on it's kind of a black eye on that area, that neighborhood. I don't know that we have any other option.
Mr. Koser, it's sort of like an ingrown toenail, you know, and it's a pain and it hurts and it's not pretty, and you know, you do everything you can, then you remove it, you have it removed and things get better. That's sort of what these houses are like. When you look at the neighborhoods and the bad effect these properties have on the neighborhoods, once we get them down, immediately things look better. People start fixing up their houses. We have now the possibility of future development on some of these lots as infill for housing development, providing the liens can be resolved. Many of these properties historically that we've demoed using CDBG funds have had multiple liens on them. And several of them we've actually, Habitat has been able to work through removing the liens and then developing new affordable housing on them. So, I mean, it's a possibility. The money is to be used for community development and removing these houses from these neighborhoods and hoping making a safer, cleaner, better looking neighborhood is what the CDBG program is all about.
And keeping one of these landlords that we have problems with in the community also from buying it, because some of the individuals we have in the community would try to rent that tomorrow.
Right.
An absolute eyesore. It's a dump. It needs to come down, and it'll only improve the area. And we do have, if you look down the street there, we have some homes that have really developed, as Marianne has said, into nice, proud homes. And then you have that eyesore, and it's an eyesore to them as well. So this is a very good thing.
How do we push the owner, though, to either sell it by having all the liens paid off by others or whoever would buy it, or when is it going to go to a sheriff's sale? When does that happen?
The sheriff's sale, that would be up to the auditor's office. So I don't know when it would go. And it will be difficult getting a clear title because of especially the tax liens that are on the federal tax liens that are on the property. It's going to be
if the liens are what Marianne says they are, nobody's going to buy this because the liens are in excess of the value of the property. So there's a good chance. I shouldn't say good. It's difficult to give an exact probability. The city could end up with this because what'll happen is this will go to tax sale. Nobody's going to buy it because they have to pay what the taxes are. Then it'll go to certificate sale, and I still don't know that there'd be a lot of interest in it. We could end up with it because the county gives parcels in the city to us when nobody buys them. So, that's a potential. But nobody's going to pay. What did you say, Mary?
There's roughly $150,000 in liens on that property.
Nobody's going to buy that.
So what would the value of our lien on the property be the full cost that we're investing in this?
Right. I would lien it for the asbestos remediation as well as the demolition.
Okay. So then I'm just kind of thinking through this. So should someone, so now of course we would not be in sort of any of the several driver seats on any of these liens. Right. But what I'm wondering is, having a lien, having our lien on that property, it would have to be paid off in full, and I assume all the other liens, for someone to then be able to decide, as a new property owner, to be able to decide what to do with it. So we would be in a position to prevent someone from buying it if we so chose, unless they paid off the lien completely, right?
We could always forgive the lien. For instance, with the properties that Habitat was interested in, we went ahead and discharged the lien because we knew there was going to be a nonprofit doing affordable housing development. Habitat has an excellent track record. So the properties that they took over, that had our liens, the CDBG lien on it, the Board of Works authorized the removal or the discharge of the lien because of the purpose, the intent of the organization.
Okay, I guess that's what I wanted to make sure of, that the board, the city, the board, Public Works would be in a position to effect some control over what happens next on that property.
Yes.
Obviously, I'd be a lot more. I mean, if we owned it, I certainly we've obviously authorized several of these. Would have no problem with that. So just want to make sure. I'm just kind of thinking through all that. So yeah, so I mean, it's a little troubling, but I don't know if there's really many other options. And just I think it's good that we would then be in a position to have the ability to have some control over what happens next. Habitat for Humanity sounds like a would be a great option. So okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Before we continue, I'm going to ask if we can pause the meeting. We have family members here of officers that are very excited to be sworn in. Jess, can you walk over? And Mark, mind pausing at home, or would you like to drive over?
Sure. I might make it that fast.
All right, then you pause at home. I'm going to ask department heads just to pause the meeting, and we will be back. And Eric Walsh, thank you for your patience. Great. All right, we are back, and thank you all for your patience. We will now move from that to Nick Minnick with a list here.
Okay. I'll start with pay application number 4 for our 2020 first round of paving with Walsh and Kelly. Pay application is in the amount of $343,209.86. This pay application with number 4, we'll have one more, and then we'll close out the project, but we're very near to completion on this. I would recommend approval.
Have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Nick, the retainage, how long will we hold that?
We'll pay it out at the next pay application.
Okay.
So all these projects that are on this pay application have been completed, or?
Yes.
Almost. Oh, okay.
But this is,
Oh,
we'll still have more to pay through Reith Riley because that's only the first one.
Yeah, so this was our contract with Walsh and Kelly. So our first round of paving with Walsh and Kelly. The one project that's lingering, and there's still a couple more items left, that's associated with the Lakeshore Drive. So Lakeshore Drive was half trail, half street, and we just have to kind of finalize that.
Okay, thank you.
And you've been happy with the work?
They've done a very good job, yes.
So I do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
The next pay application I have is for the second round of paving. This is the contract with Reith Riley. This pay application is for $552,303.69. I would recommend payment of this pay application.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. You've been pleased with their work as well?
Yeah, we've had trouble with Reith Riley in the past, but a lot of those issues have been resolved, and we've seen some really good work.
So it's all that has also been completed?
No, this is just the first pay application. We have quite a bit more left on this project. A lot of it has been completed, but not before this pay application.
But this amount that we're paying out, this work has been completed?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Next, I have the INDOT LPA boilerplate agreement for the city's local tracks project. This agreement is typical of any of our INDOT LPA projects. This one is, like I said, for the overpass project for Tipton Street.
Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Nick, this is an important project. So what are we doing here?
So this is the agreement that we have with INDOT. They waited kind of till later in the process until we had our preliminary engineer's report, which we've reviewed and we're comfortable with. Since we've given concurrence on that, then they developed the LPA INDOT agreement. So now we're signing our agreement to keep the project moving forward. The agreement did have an updated schedule, and that schedule has ready for contract, which means it would go out for bid in April of 2023.
And feds are paying 80 or 90%?
The state is paying 80% of construction, 80% of right-of-way acquisition, and 100% of all design work.
But this part of it is just like for them to get in and define the scope of the project, right? This isn't any construction in this contract.
This is just a general agreement for the project. So it'll eventually include, you know, the whole project, but this is just kind of the boilerplate contract that we have with INDOT to basically move the
contract for the contract.
Yes, correct.
That makes things easy.
Yeah.
Great. So I do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have two pay applications for the fire station. The first one, pay application number 10, is in the amount of $5,301. And the second pay application is in the amount of $180,325.99. Pay application 11 closes out the project and completes the fire station. I think Larson Dalens did a really great job for us. I think, you know, I'm hoping the fire department's enjoying the new facilities and paves the way for a new project on the east side of town too. So great project, and I would recommend approval of both pay applications.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
With the demolition of the fire station, we did have a couple items that wouldn't have been included in the initial bid. They were not excessive in this case, but we did have an asbestos inspection and then abatement of some material, and that was in the amount of $4,178. And then when we take down a building, we don't usually have them clear the whole site, but in this case, it made a lot of sense to just get the whole site cleared so it was ready for development. So there were some trees, additional trees that needed to be removed, and that cost was $1,900. So the total change order for the demolition of the fire station at 105 Boyd would be $6,078, taking the total contract from $23,000 to $29,78.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
With acceptance of the change order, I also have the final invoice. All the work is done. It looks great. It's ready for the developer to come in, and from what I understand, they want to be on the site the day they close. So kind of good to see that happen so quickly. I would recommend approval of this invoice in the amount I previously mentioned at $29,078.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
The next item I have on the agenda, we were lucky enough, we talked about the support of the Healthcare Foundation earlier. We received a grant for the 18th Street Greenway, which is the non-motorized portion of 18th Street. It also fills in some gaps where we don't have pedestrian access either to or along 18th Street. In particular, it fills in a sidewalk gap between roughly Fox Street along Kingsbury down to 18th Street. So we're looking at a combination of some new sidewalks and then also a non-motorized pathway that allow for students and anybody who wants to enjoy Kessling Park to traverse that a little bit safer. We do have a lot of traffic and speed sometimes is an issue, and this is a really great project. We don't have the final agreement. It's signed online. It's all done virtually. So I am just asking for authorization for the mayor to sign this once we have all the kind of other documents attached to it. So the other documents would be verification of performance metrics.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. I gotta think, I am very excited about this 18th Street Greenway, as we call it, Frankie Highway on 18th Street there. But this is much needed, and Maria Fruth and the Healthcare Foundation, big thank you to all their support, and Nick Minnick did a fabulous job presenting to them. So not that I'm not excited about the boat, because I am, but as well the 18th Street Greenway. This is going to be fabulous for the community.
And also Sarah Nimitz, our new project engineer, came in and that same week was able to help us develop this application and get the application in. So very grateful for her help on that as well.
So,
Will this,
oh, go ahead.
will this cover, thanks, Mark. Will this cover the entire amount of the project? What they gave us, the 506? Wow.
We structured the grant essentially to show that we're already making investment. So we've had over $500,000, so more than 50%, invested in that 18th Street corridor with our federal aid project last year, and then some other kind of ancillary projects we've done in the area. So we were able to show that we're making the investment, and then this grant is for the entirety of that pathway.
So with this pathway, so I know along 18th Street, there's that section between, let's see, I Street and Andrew Avenue, that is just kind of a yellow line, segmented area. And then of course we've got sidewalk, I think then from I to A, and I think maybe then along out to, not quite to Kingsbury, right? It stops somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, it stops at, I believe, Hillcrest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will this, what will this be? Will this be an extension of that component like that is along 18th, not sidewalk, but cordoned off, not cordoned off really, but just marked? Or will this be more of a walk bike path that'll be just in like a larger than a sidewalk?
Yeah, so the section on 18th that's complete between Andrew and I, so that section was very limited by right-of-way. So we wanted to make sure we had a separate biking facility because bike lanes on 18th Street become very difficult when you talk about students getting to and from school. So that project was 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now. So it's been a little while, 4 years ago. So that project added sidewalk, but then also a component for students that wanted to bike, because we shouldn't have biking students on sidewalks. We should have a facility that's safe for them, because a bike is a vehicle, and we don't want vehicles mixing with with pedestrians in a narrow situation like a sidewalk. As you go from that section, from I Street, heading towards Kessling, it starts to widen out as we have more right-of-way. And then by the time you get to Kessling, it's a kind of a true side path with some green space between the road and the multi-use pathway. And then you do have sidewalks on the north side. So students would have the option to either ride a bike or walk on the multi-use pathway or take the sidewalks on the north side. We have pedestrian crossings at very specific locations along 18th Street to try and make sure that there's kind of safe and controlled pedestrian crossing locations for students. And then as you go past Kessling, you have the sidewalk on the north side, you have this multi-use path on the south side that'll go all the way along through Kessling Park, where the sidewalk ends. That really becomes the only pedestrian facility for students, but then it'll be on the south side of the road. And then that'll continue all the way to Kingsbury, but kind of pushing closer into the road at that point where we start losing right of way again.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
The next item is the kind of same situation. We have a grant agreement. We'll need to finalize online in the Healthcare Foundation's portal. So asking for authorization for the mayor to also sign the grant agreement for the fire rescue boat. I believe Andy has some things on later in the meeting.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
So what are we, this agenda item right now, we're authorizing the acceptance of the grant from the foundation?
Yes, so we're authorizing the mayor to sign the grant agreement in the portal. So we don't have a physical paper document to sign. It's all done virtually.
And this is something I had told Chief Snyder. I said, if you can find half of the dollars, we'll commit the other half through the bond of the new building. And Chief Snyder didn't waste any time. He went and worked extremely hard, and so came up with his half, and now we're coming up with our half.
Well done.
Are we putting the cart before the horse by approving the grant acceptance before I guess probably one of the next agenda items? Or
Well, I don't think we can accept the bid unless we have the money.
I see what you're saying. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
The next item I have, the street department purchased the total tank. As part of that project, we also need somebody to construct the concrete pad. So we did solicit some quotes to have that work done. Courtney, did we receive any quotes for the total tank pad?
Courtney? Courtney? Hold one moment, and I think we're having a few technical.
And the next two items I have are opening quotes.
Hold on, Courtney's here.
My apologies. I was in the other. We've got the drive-through going in at the same time, so we've got lots of traffic in my office today.
Did we receive any quotes for the total tank pad?
Oh, we sure did. We've got them. Tank, we've got 1, 2, let me make sure here. 1, 2, 4 bids. First one is Reith Riley Construction Company Incorporated. In the amount of $19,525, 19525. The next bid is from Pavey Excavating. In the amount of $7,880, 7880. The next bid is from Walsh and Kelly. In the amount of $19,979. And finally, we've got Larson Danielson. The amount of $11,220, 11220.00.
So those are the bids. We can accept or take a motion based on the approval of the engineer and legal. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And they're
And
quotes,
who-
by the way. Quotes.
Their quote.
So I guess would you state the motion of who we're accepting and for the amount?
We'll refer that to legal and engineering.
So we don't need a.
Can we accept pending legal and engineering? Because I think Mike's ready to get his tank anytime.
Would the motion be accepting Pavey Excavating at $7,880?
Most responsive.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation. Pending engineering and legal review.
Jessica has a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and I know you're going to look over this, but is there anything to be concerned about when that amount is so different?
No, we have two types of contractors bidding almost the same, and then, you know, it actually makes a lot of sense to me. The numbers do.
Any other discussion? But from a quality perspective, we shouldn't be worried based on the pricing.
No, we sent to these 4 contractors because we were very comfortable with the quality they would provide.
And this is coming in around where we would have budgeted, like an engineer's budget of the amount?
Yes.
780. Okay.
So I do have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. 50/50 sidewalks.
We've got 2 bids for 50/50 sidewalks. The first is Reith Riley. In the amount of $20,120, 20120.00. The next one is Pavey Excavating. In the amount of $7,170, 7170.00. And that was it.
So before we make a motion, Nick, can you explain what this project is?
So we received applications last year for 50/50 sidewalks. When we were able to fill the position for project engineer, we contacted all of the people that had previously applied to see if they were still interested in the program. We had quite a few drop out, but we did have a few still interested. So we kind of refreshed the scope of projects, and we put out a quote package to try and finish off the 50/50 program that had been applied for last year. And then we're looking to do this more regularly and continue the program for new applicants in the spring, most likely. So this project is sidewalk. It's kind of the traditional 50/50 program. It's smaller than usual because we're kind of finalizing older projects through it.
And before we do our work, do the residents have to come up with their funds?
Yes. Yep. So what we do is we take these numbers based on the itemized bids, and we work with homeowners to see if they are still interested. At this point, we've already received a deposit. Once they pay their 50%, then we would move forward with the contract. This is one that I would recommend we review. So I wouldn't necessarily award today for Pavey. I would wait for our next Board of Works meeting, just so that we can take these numbers and make sure homeowners are still interested. We wouldn't want to necessarily award something if we ended up having more people back out of the program.
So there will be no need for a motion.
Just to accept the bids, not to award them.
Do I have a motion?
So
Make a
moved.
motion that we second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Andy Snyder, review of quotes for fire rescue boats.
Thank you, Mayor. I have submitted to the board a couple of quotes from late last year, earlier this year. We have had a number of discussions since that time, and I think I've been lucky enough to discuss this item with each of the board members individually, as well as the council. And as Mayor mentioned a little earlier, one of the discussions, a couple of the items with or concerns with it were, one, the cost, and also how this would impact if with the new Station 3 not being complete. Both of those, as you've approved already. One, the cost, we were able to secure half of the funding from the Healthcare Foundation, which was awesome, and we appreciate their support. And as you see, we basically closed out the station with the final payment today. Just a little bit of a highlight with this, where this comes from, is that the department saw that we needed a new rescue boat, fire rescue boat, to fill in some gaps that we definitely have with our services to the city and the residents and people visiting our city. First and foremost was lake safety. We currently, and showed it before, have basically a Kodiak with a 20 or a 15 horsepower motor on it. This will allow us to put a boat on the lake continuously, have immediate response, whereas our current response is about anywhere from 11 to 13 minutes, possibly, a little less if depending upon where it's at on the lake. And also fire suppression. It will have a fire pump on the boat that will allow us to have suppression for any even structures close to the lake. Homes that are on the lake would allow us to be able to access them from the lake with hoses and fire suppression. And then third, to go hand in hand with our scuba team that we are implementing at this time. And the guys are getting certified and in training. So I would ask that you consider the quotes as presented, and to accept the quote for one boat of $104,695.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
This was not a demo though, right?
Yes, this one was the demo boat.
Oh, okay, because I remember seeing the quotes some time ago and thinking, well, gosh, it's like a new boat for this same amount of money as a demo. So I kind of wondered what was happening. So, okay, so that explains that differential. And then, so with this boat, is it, it looks like can it get through the channel to get over to the Stone Lake?
Yes, it can. That's one of the attractive things about this boat, that canopy that you're looking at in the information provided. There are 2 pins that hold that canopy in place. Less than a 30-second popping of those pins, it folds down and get through the channel, and then it folds right back up again. So I mean, that's one of the very attractive things about the design of this boat that we looked at when we were looking at going this route.
Okay, because the plan still to have this boat in the water on probably Pine Lake because it's nearest that fire station. But then so obviously that's one of the things I was thinking about. Obviously, there's our two busiest lakes are going to be Pine and Stone, with both fishermen coming in and of course on the beach and whatnot. So okay.
Yeah, and it will be stationed right at Unity Park, right on the corner of Unity Park. I've already had discussions with Mark Schreiber as to this effect, and will allow us such a really quick access. Our truck can, and a lot of our divers are stationed at that station, so they will have almost immediate access to the lake, and it'll be docked right there.
Andy, do we have the equipment like the scuba gear, the training and all of that in the budget for this year or for next year for what goes along with the boat?
Much of the equipment has already been purchased. We were able to purchase that equipment as they were starting their training. A lot of that money that was used for the purchase of the equipment were from donations of different sorts, the Red Wine and Brew. We've had a number of other organizations that have donated money to us over the years and not really designated what it should be used for. And discussions within the department, previous administration, was to go ahead and finally put that money toward a scuba unit and get that implemented.
Great, thanks.
So again, given this is a demo unit, have you had a chance to see this exact unit? Just make sure that it's in really great. I mean, it says slightly used, but I mean,
yeah,
it looks like it was just mostly for trade shows. But you've had an opportunity to see it and make sure that it's really in great shape.
Yes, I actually saw it at a couple of trade shows, and then last November, wish I would have picked a better month to go try this thing out, but we did go down last November toward the end of the month and took it. It's in Athens, Alabama is where it's located at. They're right on the Tennessee River. So we took it out for a morning on the Tennessee River and put it through the paces, and it is quite the machine. So I think it'll serve our purposes greatly. And back to your question, yeah, slightly used. That was only the 3rd or 4th time that it had been on the water, was at the time that we demoed it last November, and it has not really been back on the water since. I guess one thing that COVID has helped with is they were not able to sell this boat as a demo unit because of the downturn, so it's still available for us at the same price.
Yeah, because the quote still says on it, it's got a date of 12/23/19 and it's only valid for 50 days. So this is still updated to be relevant now.
Right. I'd confirm with them that the boat is still there, that our previous agreement would still be in place as little as about a week and a half ago. And they assured me that they would still honor all of their ends of the deal.
So when will we get the boat?
They say upon approval of this, it'll take about 4 to 6 weeks to equip it specifically for us, because it does not have emergency lighting and siren on it right now. We'll need to get the new city logo put on it, as well as some other decaling, and the fire pump will need to be installed on it, as well as the nozzles to go ahead to help out with that part of it.
So Jess Romine can go for a ride by middle of December. You take her
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Pine Lake.
Put me in one of those scuba wetsuits, I'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
So now we're going to move, even though Board of Works will not have in front of them the discussion of infrastructure improvements for water and sewer and for our community. I thought it was, sorry, Mr. Frankie just texted me a unique message, so it caught me off guard there. But I think it's important for Board of Works to know what's happening. And you heard from Jerry Jackson in the wastewater department last meeting. Today, I thought it would be good to hear from Tim Warner, a brief presentation on where water is, the water department, and then I'll have a even more brief presentation of where we're going and what issues have to be addressed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim Warner from our Superintendent of Water.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to dive right. Oh, make sure I wasn't on mute. Sorry. Dive right in. You know, the EPA estimates in the next 20 years that municipal water systems will have to put $77.8 billion into their infrastructure. That's just water alone. So I just wanted to start off with that real quick. If you could rotate to the next slide for me, please. Our mission at the water department is we will engage in continuous commitment to provide high quality water supplied at a fair price. We are a 24/7, 365 day a week entity of the city of Laporte. Our goal as water professionals is to always put in a high effort to benefit our citizens, whether that's with complaints, flooding issues, or any other things that come up that concerns the citizens with the water department. Next slide, please. We provide clean and fresh, safe drinking water to 22,000 residents in the city. If you stop and think about that for a second, that makes us directly responsible for 22,000 people's health through drinking water. We maintain 2 production plants. Each are 6 million gallon a day production plants, over 1,100 fire hydrants, and 140 miles of infrastructure. We roughly pump 3 million gallons of water to the residents and businesses of Laporte each day. Next slide, please. The city of Laporte has the 3rd oldest water system in Indiana out of over 4,000 systems. The system has been in operation since 1870. Many of our pipes and distribution transmission lines were put in the early 1900s. As the population increases, so does demand for clean, safe drinking water. We cannot grow without water. Next slide, please. Some of the things we need for the water department, it all starts with groundwater for Laporte. All of our wells are, all of our supply water comes from groundwater wells. New water supplies are needed for reliability to support our growing community. Many of our wells are reaching their life expectancy. The East Plant wells, we have 6 wells that feed the East Plant. They're all in pretty good shape. The issue is the Lake Street plant. Out of those 10 wells, we have 4 that are failing. We only have 1 good well or high flow production well that comes into the Lake Street plant at this time. Next slide, please. Many of them wells were drilled in the 1960s. Some more repairs we need. Plant 2 on the east end of town does 65% of our daily pump into city residents. The infrastructure inside Plant 2 is failing quickly. It's not a matter of when or if, but when. The picture there kind of shows the pressure filter tanks. The round tanks are where the filtering is done through the plant. The green pipe up top would be the raw water coming in from the wells. The brown piping would be the backwash of the system. The dark blue piping on the bottom is potable water coming out, clean water going into the system. It's hard to see, but towards the far right on the brown pipe, you can see a repair clamp there, and there's several other clamps up on that header. If that header was to break, we would not be able to continue to supply the whole city with water at this time, just because of the simple fact we don't have the water coming into plant 1. Next slide, please. Laporte has a lot of dead ends in them. When the system was built in the early 1900s, they really didn't think about looping in these ends. Basically, the system was built in what we call a tree diagram. Basically, as you can see, it goes out and just kind of staggers out. Nothing's connected in these areas. So not only Laporte, but that was pretty common all across in other cities. It was the cheapest, fastest way to supply the most customers at the time. The problem with these dead ends is they create stagnant water and flow issues for the system as a whole, but especially for the residents in the affected area. Tying in these dead ends also improves fire protection through high flow rates. Just for an example, around the Rural King property, the main that runs in the back of that, which we call Delivery Drive, has about 6 hydrants back there. So we tied it in, looped it from the main that comes off of Andrew Ave up by the auto parts store there. And we gained several hundred gallons a minute out of each one of those hydrants. So just a little example of what tying in dead end mains can do for the system. Next slide, please. That's a scary picture for some. That's a 4-inch water main, about 100 years old, that has tremendous amount of tuberculation and scaling buildup on the inside. We have 22.9 miles of this kind of pipe inside the city limits. The standard is now 8-inch pipe. Over the years, the sediment has built up in the pipes and has reduced the internal capacity of the pipe. This restricts flow and contributes to dirty water events. So when I was talking about those high velocity events earlier, if you can kind of picture water inside that pipe, when we have that large pull on the system, whether it's a fire hydrant, a main break, or any other large event, that velocity will score some of that scaling off of the pipe and suspend it in the water, and that's where we get our dirty water complaints. We just finished up our hydrant flushing, so maybe some of you have experienced that in the past with dirty water. Basically, it's that scaling being suspended. Next slide, please. Broken valves. Broken valves inside the city limits are a major issue. We have anywhere around 900 valves in the system. We have 75 documented broken valves in the system right now. Getting back to the dead ends, you can kind of see on the diagram on the bottom picture there, that's a closed valve. So it creates 2 more dead ends. The reason that those valves are important to us, if a natural disaster came through Laporte, we'd be able to isolate certain areas of the town to prevent boil orders. We've been lucky here in the city of Laporte, haven't had a boil order. Some of the communities around us deal with them on a regular basis. That's something to be proud of. We keep that to a minimum. This is one way to do that, by isolating certain areas if we ever had a big event. Next slide, please. Lead lines. Lead lines, I know, have been in the news a lot lately. I mentioned this last night. Here in the water industry, we don't like to mention that 5-letter F word of Flint, but it is a possibility. A little different of a situation in Flint than what Laporte is dealing with. A lot of the homes built before the 1920s, which is a good portion of the homes in Laporte, have that lead line. Even if it has been changed, even up until the 30s and 40s when they started putting galvanized pipe in, they still connected that service connection to the main with a lead gooseneck. Something we're trying to get rid of, as the EPA and IDEM harshens their regulations and restrictions on lead lines. I think it's good to be proactive in removing these lines. out of the city. Currently, lead is not a problem for Laporte. I do want to make sure everybody knows that. We pump in an orthophosphate, which is a corrosion inhibitor that helps coat the inside of those pipes to keep the lead from scoring off and coming into houses. We test well below the EPA and IDEM standards for lead in the water. Next slide, please. You know, we inherited a lot of these problems. They weren't done through this administration or even Mr. Taylor before me. These are things that were put in the systems a long time ago, but it is time to deal with it as a community, as a water department, and as a city. When the residents of our city turn on their faucet, they expect to see clean running water. That's a simple fact. We just can't continue to not address this problem. I know it's not a problem that everybody sees every day, but it is in the ground lurking. It's like a time bomb, and I just want to be upfront with everybody that it's not going to get any better as time goes on. These repairs get more expensive. We have more events where boil orders and things like that could be possible. It's definitely time to start to attack some of these issues. If there's any questions, I'm here. I can answer any questions that the board might have or anybody else at
Tim,
this time.
thank you very much. And as I've stated, Tim Warner, stated to the council last evening, Tim Warner and Jerry Jackson are two of the best in the state. They're recognized in the state, and we have them here locally. And this is going to be the difference that gets us through and improves our system because of the leadership of these two individuals. So questions from either of the board members?
Well, one quick question. So when you talked about the remnants of lead pipe, whether it kind of runs to the house or whether it's just that gooseneck, and the fact that we're using orthophosphate. So if we would go to, if we had a complete system of just the galvanized pipe, would we need to use this orthophosphate additive?
Yeah, the orthophosphate also helps wastewater on their end. It keeps dissolved copper and solids out of the Kankakee River. So that just puts a coating on the inside of all the pipes to allow the water to flow smoothly through it without picking up those materials, whether it's lead, copper, anything those materials are going through. Jerry has strict regulations on his end, what the parameters are of dissolved coppers he can discharge. So it kind of helps both of us out. I hope that answered your question.
So
Tim, you mentioned that we only have one good well on the Lake Street plant out of how many altogether?
There was 3 wells or actually 4 wells that fed this plant. The one that's coming in now is Warnicki 6. It's part of our new well field. The Tyler well, which is here on the property, is completely failed. And the Hawthorne well down the road, when it was drilled, it was a 1,800 gallon a minute well. Now we're lucky to get 300 to 400 gallons a minute out of it. Part of the issue with that is when in the past, as an industry as a whole, when we drilled these wells, we would pump test them. The wells would test out at, say, 1,500 gallons a minute. Well, everybody's like, oh, 1,500 gallons a minute. Let's put a 1,500 gallon a minute pump in there and get every bit of that water we can out. What that does is, through that velocity, starts to plug the formation up by pulling that water in so fast. So the industry has really changed on that. Back in 2011, we drilled 3 new wells at the East plant. They all test out between 12 to 1,800 gallon a minute. We put 600 gallon a minute pumps in those wells. So you're bringing that water in at much slower of a velocity, and the specific capacity of those wells is held up really nice over time. So that's just one of the things that we're doing a little different here at the water department to help these wells stay healthy and very productive for us in the future.
Other questions?
So what's the what's the price tag to say, let's say we wanted to fix all of these issues?
Well,
what would be the total cost? I mean, if like somebody wrote a check today,
Mark,
John Foundation.
that's a great question.
Yes, it is.
You couldn't have asked, because it's gonna lead us right into my brief presentation, and then Eric Walsh from Baker Tilly, who has been so patient through. So, Jess, if we want to go ahead and put this up, you've heard from Jerry, you've heard from Tim. It's not that if any dollars are new dollars being generated, they're not going to pay office people. Much of these dollars are going into the ground in much needed infrastructure. And after you've heard from Jerry, after you've heard from Tim, it really is about investing in the health and safety of our community. So first, as we talk about, the time is now. Our water and wastewater systems are more than 100 years old. Many of these systems were put in before 1901. Tim mentioned we have the third oldest water system in the state, and we have right now, as we speak, over $100 million in infrastructure needs in our water and sewer system. If you look, this is an actual part of our sewer system on Plain Street, and as you can see, bricks system not even allowed to be installed anymore via a brick system. You can see the leakage that happens over time, and this is an actual piece of infrastructure in our community, and the city cannot keep up with the cost of this rapidly aging revenue generation that we receive, and we cannot kick the can down the road. Battling flooding and backups. As you look at this, for our wastewater department, approximately 75% of the city's sewer system is made of combined sewers, carrying wastewater and stormwater in the same line. You can't even do that. It would no longer be approved by the EPA to have a combined sewer system. Heavy rain events can overload the treatment plant, and think about the waste that's involved there that gets backed up from the plant, flows down the Kankakee River. We have many residents that like to go down and recreate, fish, and can you imagine the E. coli that goes down there if we have an overload in our treatment center? And then as well, can also overflow the storm drains, causing flooding in streets and basement backups. You know, we get all types of calls when we have a heavy rain and our roads are backing up, basements are flooding, and kids are out here, as an example, playing in the rain. And think about, again, due to the flooding, based on our system being ancient, that these kids are basically playing in yard waste, animal waste. Again, an E. coli is a real concern in this type of situation. And then leaks in the old infrastructure causes soil to wash away, resulting in sinkholes. And as I said last night, even our elected officials are not, they have to deal with this, as Courtney, our clerk treasurer, had to deal with a sinkhole outside her house from the road caving and being addressed. So this is real. Fending off system failure. I used the same picture that Tim did because that should scare everybody that looks. This is real. This is Laporte, and this is a problem. And when our water supply wells are reaching their life expectancy at plant 1, and then problems of failure, and Tim mentioned time bomb. Plant 2 is a time bomb. And if we lose access to provide water to 65% of our residents, that's going to be a problem. And then the sediment that builds up in the pipe over the years has restricted flow and contributes to the dirty water events that happen in the city. And then Tim mentioned, lead service lines in the future. While we don't have an issue today, the EPA and IDEM are going to begin to provide stricter regulations. So what does that mean? We can't do $100 million worth of infrastructure today. I think Jerry and Tim would probably like the opportunity to do that, but we're going to start serious needs. And so we're asking our council to support a $25 million infrastructure investment. And a few of the projects that I think were important for you to see, number one, Monroe Manor, sewer separation. We did the beginning of Monroe Manor. I think we have about 60% left to do in Monroe Manor, and people are asking on a daily basis, and that's a $3 million project tag. Lettered and number streets. All you have to do is drive around 18th Street, up the letters, number streets, and after a heavy rain and basements are flooding, we see these. Think about where our basement grants that Jerry provides. Think about what we've approved over the first 9 months and where those are. Many of them are right in this area, and we have to address that. Then flood control projects, B Street and Southmore Road are very important. Tim mentioned the new water supply. These are only a few, including the replace the broken valves and undersized mains that are a part of the 25 million. And these projects will not happen overnight, but we can't kick the can down the road. We must take action now. So how do we pay for it? We have to increase rates. In blunt form, we have to increase rates, but look at our rates compared to many communities in our area and in the state. If you look here, Laporte's current rate, we're one of the lowest. And Jerry and Tim have done, and Todd Taylor before him have done a great job at keeping rates low. Sometimes I've said too low because we've got work to do. But look at where the state average is, and the state average is constantly moving, and we're well below that. So if you picture at the increases that we're going to discuss in 2024, the state average is not going to stay where it is. The water rate, I think, raised $5 in the last 3 years as the state average. We will still be below, by the time we're done in 2024, still be below the state average. But look at Warsaw, look at Mishawaka, look at Valpo. Those communities we're competing against that are providing infrastructure, we can do as well as they do. So to give an example, and I'll just go through the residential rate. So for somebody, and again, it depends on your usage, but the state average is 4,000 gallons for a homeowner. And if you were to look, the current bill right now is for water, wastewater, and stormwater, $48.94. What we're asking is an increase of, for the next year, of $4.96 to cover the water, wastewater, and stormwater. The stormwater will stay the same for residents, but $4.96 a month. And when you look at that, that's 17 cents a day, or, we talked about four bottles of water, 2 large coffees in a month, to make sure that we're providing quality services. And as you look over the entire plan, taking the current bill at $48.94 to a 2024 rate of $68 or $62.78. And one thing that you'll see is we've been told our numbers need to be much higher than this to do necessary work, but we can't put that on homeowners. We can't put that on businesses. So we've decided to take this route and settle on only 25 million for now. And then you look at this page and the next page, industrial users. A couple years ago, the council passed an ordinance to increase the stormwater fees for actual usage on hard surfaces such as roofs and pavement. Then they went back and charged everybody $5.49. So you have large retailers, large industrial manufacturers that are only paying $5.49 for stormwater, even though they're one of the biggest users of the stormwater as it comes off their hard surface on the roof, on large pavements. And we are talking retailers, manufacturers, and our goal here is to bring them back to what they should be paying for usage, or what I say is usage in stormwater. One thing we are going to consider doing is for stormwater for those industrial customers is maybe, for example, if their bill was $500 a month, take them to $250 in 2021. So only half, 50%, and then bring them to the other 50% in 2022. But again, as I mentioned, what we're getting for that 17 cents a day is improved water quality, improved public safety, fewer flooding and backup incidents. And if the council were to choose, hey, we don't want to do this now, hold off, here's what we're actually dealing with. You want to go ahead and move to the next slide? If we fail to act now, water quality will diminish. Dirty water events occurring more frequently because you saw the interior of that lead pipe. There's no way that it can't. Potential boil orders, continued flooding and basement backups, potential fines from the EPA and IDEM as they see these backups. That's what they monitor and that's what they mark. And then more expensive repairs down the road because these repairs won't go away. The need for these repairs will still happen. And instead of $100 million down the road for a new council and new mayor, it might be $125 million. So that's something we have to address. So with that, I'll be glad to, and Jerry and Tim are on for a reason. They will answer all the real questions and be glad to answer anything from Jess or Mark.
Mayor, hey, first question. When you talked about, like, I think you mentioned, like, if there is a business that you said 500, then 250, but I think, are you talking about if the business expects to see, based upon these potential rate changes, an increase of 500 in their bill overall between now to the next year, that you would sort of gate that so that their increase might be 250 over 2 years versus 500 in 1 year?
It would be, what I'm suggesting is 250. If their bill was going to be $500, it'd be $250 in 2021, and then it would go to the $500 in 2022 total.
The increase, right?
Well, they're at $5.49 now. Everybody is. So in year 2021, if their total bill was going to be 500, they'd be 250 in 2021, and then their bill would be 500 a month in 2022.
That's for stormwater.
Correct.
Okay. That's the part I didn't catch. Okay.
You have the price tag at 25 million. Is that over the 5-year period, or and you want to start with about 8-ish in 2021?
Well, Jerry and Tim, go ahead. We just wanted, and I just put a few of the main projects that would get residents' attention, which they've asked for. But
Okay.
Jerry and Tim, if you guys want to go ahead and address all the different projects and items that you'll be addressing there.
The working with Baker Tilly, we produced a capital improvement plan. The mayor's hit the big ticket items, the early items that are on that plan, but it's budgeted out 5 years, and then there's other items beyond that didn't make the first 5-year list. So every year we review that capital improvement plan and say this project needs to be moved out to this year, this one needs to move up, and so that's kind of the budgeting process we've used to manage capital projects. I'll send you the longer term, more detailed capital project list from Wastewater. You can take a look at it and see what you think.
Thanks.
It might be good to have Eric Walsh from Baker Tilly, who is, again, patiently waited. Eric's been a great asset for our community. Eric, anything you'd like to add? And, we want to get into the debt portion of it, but something that you want to share regarding all this now would be great.
Sure. And can you pull up on the share screen the October 2nd report? While that's happening, thank you, Jessica. My name is Eric Walsh. I'm a partner with Baker Tilly. We've been the financial advisors for the city and the utilities for several years. I've been with the firm formerly known as Umbaugh. It's the same firm, just a different name, for about 15 years. I'm going to be brief. But I also want to answer any questions you all have. I will say, Mayor, I do have another meeting in about 25 minutes I have to jump off for, so hopefully I can answer any questions before then. On the presentation you all see on your screen, if you'll go to the first graph, and the mayor already showed this, it's the second or third page in. Yep, this graph right here. As the mayor already alluded to, this shows water, sewer, and stormwater rates for a residential customer. And you can see as you move up your rates over a 4-year phase in by 2024 that you fall farther to the right on the graph or the chart. What I want to underscore is what the mayor said, though. All the other communities we're comparing you to are as of today. Over the next 4 years, and we work with a large majority of these communities, they'll be adjusting either water, sewer, or stormwater, or a combination of those as well. Same thing for the state average that you see there in the middle of the page. You'll just be above the state average when you hit phase 4 of this proposed rate adjustment in 2024. That state average is based on 2018 data. So it'll be 6 years old by the time you guys hit your phase 4. If I was a betting person and based on historical reference, we update this analysis about every 3 to 4 years for state averages. You will be well under probably the state average once again when we update this 2 to 4 years from now. If you go now to the next page, this is the hypotheticals that the mayor showed. And I just really want to hit a couple of points that the mayor already touched on, but just to make sure, I apologize, you probably hear my kids in the background. I want to touch on a few points here that the mayor hit, but underscore them. If you look at the bottom two hypothetical scenarios, you'll notice stormwater going up in years 2021 and 2022. 2021 and 2022. What you'll notice in the first scenario, though, the residential, is it stays at $5.49 all the way across. So when you see these percentage adjustments that are higher percentages in the phase-ins for the industrial hypotheticals, that is primarily all being driven by the stormwater. And all we're doing is taking over a 2-year phase-in those non-residential, so industrial and commercial customers, to the stormwater rates they originally should have been paying since 2018. Your residential customers have been paying the full share, their fair share all along. Now the commercials and the industrials are going to go to where they were originally intended to be 2+ years ago. So that's driving the percentage discrepancy. What you'll also notice then is water and wastewater, even though the dollar amounts are larger for the industrial or the larger customers, the percentage increases are all the same. So water and wastewater, depending on the size of your current bill, you're getting the same percentage increase, whether you're the largest commercial customer in town or the smallest residential commercial or customer in town. The final point that I'll add to, and there's plenty of detail in this report, including what Jerry alluded to, the detailed capital plans of what's being funded, other operational cost needs of both utilities just to operate day to day, and then normal capital improvements outside of the bond issues we're talking about that are needed to take care of. But the rate increases we're talking about are primarily driven by capital needs. As the mayor said, over $25 million over the next 4 years. Included in that $25 million is a bond issue in the water utility of $7.8 million that this will fund, and a bond issue in the sewage utility of almost $20 million that this rate increase will fund. Well, if you're doing the math kind of at home there, that's higher than $25 million. When you add those two together, it's $28 million. The reason that's higher is a couple of years ago, the city took out a short-term financing called a bond anticipation note. They took out one in water for $4 million and one in the sewage works for $6 million. Those are short-term, less than 5-year financings that have to be paid off with a longer-term financing or cash. Obviously, you don't have $10 million of cash just to pay those off all at once. So we're coming to the point now where you're going to have to issue a bond issue long-term anyway to pay off those short-term financings. So we're being strategic about it and marrying the payoff of those along with these other large-scale capital projects that Tim and Jerry have, so you can do it all at one time and save on issuance costs, et cetera, and make it more efficient.
Questions for Eric? Jess, Mark?
So one question, just with regards to the stormwater increases that are, obviously pretty striking and kind of, as you mentioned, kind of to bring them back to where they probably should have been a few years ago, is just sort of conceptually, is the increase there because when we talk about these businesses, they're, whether it's from parking lots or from the building sizes in the roof, all of that water goes into the stormwater system as opposed to being absorbed in the ground?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really one of the most difficult pieces of this to grasp a lot of times for the constituents, but I'll try to explain it as best that I can. Your water and wastewater bills are based on usage, and it's based on a water meter, right? So it measures the amount of water that goes into that household or that business, and then conceptually that water turns into wastewater, goes down the drain. So you're paying on that consumption or that gallonage. Stormwater, you can't meter rainwater. But what you can do is take a look at impervious areas, so roofs, parking lots, where water is not absorbed and in essence runs off and is caught in your storm drainage or sewer drainage systems, and eventually makes its way to the treatment plant or an outfall to be treated. So the way that that's measured is by measuring that impervious area. And the city a couple of years ago enlisted an engineering firm out of Chicago named Christopher Burke. And what Christopher Burke did is looked at all the residential customers or all the residential homesteads of the city and came up with an average impervious area of 3,000 square feet. So when you see these ERUs, one ERU is an equivalent residential unit. So one ERU is equal to 3,000 square feet of impervious area. So when you see, for instance, in the second hypothetical, a 3 ERU customer, that is a non-residential customer that has impervious area of 9,000 square feet or 3 times the residential. So that's in essence the way of metering, if you will, the stormwater that's being driven is all residentials are their own class and they're all assumed 3,000. Nobody gets a specially tailor-made rate for residential because they're all uniform enough. Yeah, there's probably some people at 2,000 square feet and some at 5,000, but you lump them all together at an average of 3,000 and treat them all the same. Everyone that's not a residential actually has their own tailored rate based on their impervious area divided by 3,000. So that's in essence the way of metering it or saying this is what they're giving to the system. And it's really the most fair way to do it because your large roofs, your large parking lots is really what's driving your stormwater cost.
So could a business say, well, gosh, when we built our plant or our lot or whatever, we had an accommodation for stormwater runoff, and so we've got this retention area over here, and it's been computed to be able to handle, the 100-year rain type of thing, where it should be able to handle all that. Is that something that a business could look at it and logically argue against this?
Gary, do you want to hit on that?
Yes, a business in town will benefit from stormwater improvements in a whole lot of ways. Their trucks, their employees will drive on the roads, where we'll fix drainage on the roads with this. It's reasonable to have a discount for handling their water in a superlative fashion. And we plan on providing some discounts between the 50% increase and the 100% increase. But it's not because they do benefit from these stormwater improvements, it's not reasonable to expect their bill to go to zero. So there would be some discounts, but they won't be 100% discounts.
So basically, if a business has, if they have some accommodation, maybe they have extras, whatever the setup is that they might have to handle some of that stormwater to a much more significant extent than the average. There may be some discount in there because of how they've handled it. And you could say, well, they did the right thing up front. Maybe when they built the building or whatever, that would be the case.
Correct. And Arconic is a pretty good example. They built a very large storm basin with their last project. So you can see that when you drive by it on Boyd Boulevard. That's sort of where they captured the large storm, the 100-year storm. That would be appropriate to have a discount for that sort of behavior.
Okay.
So I might add, I just want to add one thing to that. It's also an incentivization because remember, in a combined sewer, your sewers and your stormwater are combined. So your plant has to be sized and have capacity to treat all of this rainwater. So by giving these types of credit mechanisms, you're incentivizing people on their own dime to capture some of that stormwater and reduce your capacity needs in your own plant. So it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Other
So,
questions before Eric has to leave?
so just with the 25 million to get right to the bond issue, so how long, what is the payoff time period for that bond?
It's approximately 20 years.
So we're gonna get bonds for 27, almost 28 million, pay off our short-term financing that we had for both water and sewer that remains. And then we're going to increase the fees to help capture some of the other costs that are going to be substantial still throughout each year as we move along. Is that about right?
Correct. There's two separate bonds. They'll be sold approximately the same time, but your water and your sewage are really two separate entities. So they have to have two separate bonds. And when I talk sewage, stormwater is actually part of your sewage works, as you guys know. So it's really sewer, stormwater, and water, two separate bond issues. And yes, the rate adjustment that's being phased in over 4 years, one is needed to support those bonds. Without the rate adjustment, you wouldn't be able to support the payback of those. And then two, it's also to pay for other capital outside of that 25 million, $27 million of bonds. There's normal year after year, 6-figure, 7-figure capital needs as well.
So in the big picture, if let's say we've got, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was 100 million in capital needs for all of these systems. If we, my dog's climbing up here. If we do these 25, yeah, she likes clean water, so that's, yeah. And clean storm water. So if we do 25 million of these bonds that'll be paid off over 20 years, I'm wondering if that will prevent us from doing more to cover the 75 million that needs to be addressed at some point in time. So in the big picture, what is our plan to kind of address really the full 100 million over the course of the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years? Is that reasonable?
Mayor, if you don't mind, do you want me to take a kind of a stab at that? I know we've talked about this peripherally a little bit.
Yes.
That's a good question. And if you look longer term, history is often a good benchmark for what you're going to see in the future. And for water and sewer, I went back your last 2 times you've adjusted rates. And in the last 17 years, you've only had really one rate adjustment. And that was 5 or 6 years ago in water and sewer. But if you go back to 2006, which was the rate adjustment before that one, from 2006 through 2024, which is the end of this four-year phase in, so it's a 17-year period. On average, annually, your water rates only will have been going up 2.5% per year. Your sewer on average for that same 17-year period at the end of this 2024 phase in will have only been going up approximately 3% per year. So you've really managed and kept your rate adjustments low. And the mayor alluded to this earlier, maybe too low. And I work all over the state of Indiana, and I'm not in the business of going around saying, hey, you got to raise your rates, got to raise your rates, got to raise your rates. But exactly what you're hitting on there is probably what you're looking at of, if you want to get $100 million of capital infrastructure done, you probably are not going to be able to have an average over the next 10 to 15 years of only 2.5 or 3% of rate adjustment. That doesn't mean you have to have 10, 20, 30% rate adjustment, but that means you may need to be looking more in that 5, 6% type range over an extended period of time to make that money fall to the bottom line to be used for capital infrastructure. And additionally, to have the opportunity in future years, as you have big projects coming, you may need additional bonds down the road as well to chunk in that $75 million.
Other questions? And please, Mark, Jessica, as you guys think of other questions, as we continue to discuss with the public, please email Eric direct, all of us, Jerry and Tim, we're available and accessible. And I think Jerry, as he did last night, really showed that we are trying to incentivize residential home owners, business owners, any way possible. Is that fair to say, Jerry?
It is. We want to be fair about this, but we want to make progress. So I think incentives work.
And it's easy to say, don't do it, we can't do it, but we have an issue, $100 million worth of work that we can't turn away from, because then what happens if we do have one of those problems, one of those issues, and then we're in a real difficult position. So any other questions? Eric, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. And
thank you.
If there's nothing else,
I'm going to jump off here, Mayor. If you don't have anything else for me, is that okay?
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Any other comments from our board?
I just wanted to add something real quick, Mayor, that I forgot to touch on. You know, when I was talking about those valve replacement problems, we can do 95% of those in-house. We have the equipment. We would have to make, some small capital purchases of another piece of line stop equipment to be able to do those in-house, which is going to save a lot of money. We can take that same amount of money and do more valves with instead of hiring those out. So I just wanted to be clear with that that work can be done in-house by water department staff.
Thank you, Tim.
Mayor, can I note something as well from the utility billing area?
Briefly, yes.
Not to prolong the meeting. I was on a 3-hour one last night as well. The utility billing area has gone from payment arrangement agreements. We're around 80 to 90 payment arrangements right now. In August, we were up to 200. 80 is probably a normal payment arrangement number for us. So people are paying their water bill right now. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I guess I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. We are adjourned. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Please contact me if you guys have any questions. I'm in the office every day, so give me a call.
All right, thank you.